It is April the 8th, 2022. We're back. We had a 2-week layoff, partly because Keith has. What happened to you, Keith, in Kent? You were made the head of the university, was it?
I was knighted, Sir Keith.
You've always been Sir Keith to me. But what you
No,
got? You got an honorary PhD.
I did. I'm a doctor of the university now.
I wish I could get a dishonorable PhD, but you're an honorable one.
Did you do a PhD? I can't remember.
A PhD did me. I didn't do it.
Because I did start one there.
We all started one. None of us ever finished, which is why we're here and not stuck in some horrible university talking about irrelevant things.
My wife always says it's a good fortune I didn't become an academic because she thinks I'd flirt with all the young students.
You probably would. You'd be. I'd be thrown out before you, but you would be thrown out as well.
Yeah, I think that's very likely.
Well, congratulations anyway. I think it's quite an achievement. And if all else fails, Keith, you can become a professor. You've got a PhD now, right?
Yeah, indeed. What fun.
We need to rename you Prof. Keith. Who's that? Prof. Galloway?
Prof. Galloway, yeah.
So now it's Prof. Tier as well.
It is.
Well, Prof. Tier, what's happening this week? A lot of interesting stuff. Yeah, meeting with Elon Musk. What is he up to here with Twitter?
Well, you reading between the lines, he's basically got so much money and time on his hands that he feels able to engage with his angst about Twitter's lack of free speech. And I think what he's doing is he's paying $2 billion for a seat at the board. And the CEO today announced that they're going to do Ask Me Anything with the entire employee base, with Elon holding the microphone, which is deference indeed, to bow down.
But to be fair to Musk, he's not actually paying $2 billion. I mean, it's not. He had to buy the stock, but
it's gone up since.
Yeah, because anything he touches turns to gold. So
I think he's $1 billion in profit already from buying it.
Yeah, I've given up. I remember about 4 years ago, I wrote the guy off thinking he was going to kill Tesla. Well, whatever he did there is so remarkable that clearly he's made, he's even smarter and more insane than Steve Jobs.
So the rumor is that the focal point is going to be allowing Donald Trump back into Twitter as a demonstration of.
Yeah, well, that would be right. I mean, it's absurd he's not in there.
But, many people disagree. So many people are fighting the war against Trump that the principles of free speech go out the window. And I'm not one of those. I'd rather I don't really want to debate Trump either because he's such an idiot. But I think it's, denying him being on Twitter is not smart politics and is not ethical.
Well, it's just profoundly undemocratic. I mean, he's probably the most powerful and amongst the most interesting people in the country. To not allow him on because you don't like what he says is ridiculous.
But what David Sachs was on CNBC, and David Sachs was asked to explain what Musk is doing. And I think Sachs and Musk, I don't know if they're friends, but they certainly hang out together on occasion. And so Sachs is probably close to accurate in describing it. And what Sachs says is that he believes the First Amendment, which is about governments banning people from saying things in the public square, should be extended to private companies because the private companies now own the public square. And so it's all about forcing Twitter to be subject to the First Amendment, not just Twitter, I imagine. And that would be the first time that a privately owned platform has to comply with social norms and can't have its own rules.
So has Musk actually said something about Trump, or that's just what you think?
I think that's what I think, and that's what the back chatter is. I don't know for a fact that that's what he's going to do.
So he's that principled, or he's just, as you say, he's got. But he's a fairly busy guy. He's got a lot of stuff going on. It's not like he has time for this.
Seems to have time for it. You know, the thing is, when you're having fun, time flies, right? So I think he's having fun in SpaceX. He's having fun in Tesla. He's having fun with his brain implant startup that he's messing around with. And I think he employs super smart people everywhere. So he actually is air traffic control to his businesses rather than hands-on operational.
Well, that makes him so super smart, is that he's not a hands-on guy. He's willing to delegate.
Yeah, very important.
And then his old partner at PayPal, Peter Thiel, is also in the news. I was going to call him Donald Trump, but he's Peter Thiel.
Yeah, I put him in my section called Da Da Dow. I don't know why.
I don't know what that has to do with Da Da Dow.
It means yes, yes, Dow.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with Dow.
No, but that's my section. And you actually pointed this article out to me, and it's about blockchain, Bitcoin in particular, and how the gerontocracy is holding back Bitcoin. You know, what Thiel is saying is just common sense. He's making the point that whether it's Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan or Larry Fink at BlackRock, the old financial bureaucracy does not want Bitcoin to prosper, because their ability to control financial instruments relies on the current infrastructure for money and the relationships they've built around that, and their ability to do anything would be undermined if money was democratized in the way that Bitcoin suggests it could be.
But Peter Thiel has as much money, if not more, than those people. So this idea, and there is just as many giant corporations, financial institutions on board the crypto train. So I'm not sure if this is entirely true, is it? I mean, he's clearly was playing to his audience.
Oh yeah, he was speaking at the Bitcoin conference in Miami to thousands of people physically present and listening remotely.
It is remarkable, though, how Thiel and Musk have become these. I mean, they're more than larger. They're larger than life characters.
Yeah, I think what it is, Andrew, is this is what's good about capitalism. If you think about the debate between, in quote, socialists and in quote, capitalists, the state is a preserver of the status quo mostly, and capitalism is undermines the status quo every time it does something successful. And what these two represent is innovative capitalism pushing boundaries, often against state opposition.
I agree on Musk. I think Thiel's more complicated and in a way even more interesting than that, in that he's ultimately a monopolist who wants to seize control of the state. That's my sense with him. That's what his politics are. I mean, I think he's much more interested in politics than he is in blockchain or in technology. I mean, he's moved to DC, hasn't he?
I actually don't know that that's the case. If you say it is, I believe you. Is that true?
Well, I again, with these people, when you say move, I mean, they have many homes, but he certainly bought a place in DC.
My observation is if you look at recent history through career choices, recent history meaning the last 100 years, and you go back in time, being a politician used to be a noble career choice. Being a lawyer, being working in journalism was a noble career choice. And if you look at what young people flock to today, it's, my son is a good example, computer science at Syracuse. It's engineering. It's, this whole creator economy stuff is being driven. So institutional jobs are declining in importance. And I think as global infrastructures rise up, like Bitcoin, national politics is going to become less and less. It's going to become like city politics. people who are there will probably be corrupt and
Maybe, although I mean that's part of your whole post-nation state shtick. I don't see any evidence of that in China or Russia. And secondly, I wouldn't be surprised if Musk, if he's so bored, why wouldn't he run for president?
Yeah,
I mean, you have this
is he clever
sort of
enough?
celebrity-style politics on the conservative wing of the American political system. Ultimately, I think what's going to happen in America is that progressives are going to have to find a Musk, not a Teal, because he's obviously on the other side of Musk, or a Mark Cuban, or someone like that.
Well, I think the chances of the first gay president being Peter Thiel and not Buttigieg is pretty likely.
Buttigieg over Teal, or Teal over Buttigieg?
Thiel. I think
I don't want to think about Teal over Buttigieg. It's a bit vulgar.
But I do think...
Yeah, that would be a great presidential race. Teal against Musk.
Yeah, I think they...
I think there's a bit of history there, isn't there?
It's interesting. Musk was born in South Africa. I'm just thinking, so was David Sachs. And obviously there's a whole revolutionary tradition of anti-apartheid.
And your wife.
And my wife. So that anti-apartheid tradition that comes from there is no lover of authority. And not loving authority is a precondition for innovation. So they've all got something going for them. But I fear that they don't have a social brain. So they're not thinking about people first. They're thinking about themselves first and having fun. So that's dangerous. That leads to populism and kind of various versions of autocracy, which wouldn't be good.
Well, maybe all he wants to do is create DAOs. What's happening on the DAO front, the Distributed Autonomous Organization, Keith?
So there's a great long piece from Andreessen this week about how to build decentralized software, principles, models, and how to do it. Very, very good if you're into that. But the biggest news of the week is the UK Minister for Finance, Rishi Sunak,
whose wife's in trouble at the moment, right?
His wife's in trouble. They've announced that they're going to set up an infrastructure sandbox in the UK financial markets to enable crypto companies to innovate and experiment. Apparently, they're thinking of allowing stable coins to become official currency as well, so spent in shops. So this is the first of the big nations to step forward and embrace crypto and want to grow.
You think of Britain as a big nation. That's like thinking of Manchester United as a big football club.
No comment on that one, but Britain's still in the top 10, I think. By GDP, it might even be in the top 5.
Yeah. But you squeezed all this into the DAO section, which you should put the DAO section in the crypto section.
Well, there is no crypto section, so it's all crypto. And the reason I put it in the DAO section is the 2 articles in it, How DAOs Could Change the Way We Work, which is coming from the Harvard Business Review. And DAOs could revolutionize how startups are run, which comes from VentureBeat. 2 substantive essays, and I gave the title to them, but actually the content in here covers a broad range of crypto-related stuff in this section.
And then is the Andreessen piece a technical piece or a business piece on DAOs?
It's a bit of both. So let's click on it and I'll show you. So it's written by Miles Jennings. And if you look at the titles, why it's challenging to design decentralization. So that's for a product person. What the components are you need, what the models are, the business models, how to apply it to finance, distributed finance, how to decentralize complex applications, how to decentralize with third-party resources and intellectual property, how to decentralize NFTs, and how to decentralize tokenization protocols. So it's basically a how-to, really aiming at engineers and product people or
And what's the business case for decentralization?
There's a lot of debate that goes to the core of the debate between Jack Dorsey and Mark Andreessen. The business case is the creation of value through mass involvement in ownership and governance for any given set of processes. So the money comes from whatever the processes are it's applied to, and the DAO means that the rewards are spread across the people who contribute effort to it. So there, in theory, shouldn't be centralized ownership and control. And of course, that's very challenging for venture capitalists. So the only way for them to play is not to buy ownership, but to invest in at the beginning and buy the tokens that are used to fuel the platforms. And so it involves some completely different thinking about ownership and governance as well. There's no board of directors, for example. There's no company. It's interesting going back to our discussion about WorldCoin and Sam Altman and the universal basic income idea. That is being done in a centralized Web 2-ish kind of a way. And WorldCoin are owning a certain percentage of the WorldCoin tokens initially, and so will become wealthy if the platform takes off. And the big debate is, shouldn't it be fully decentralized using a DAO? And Altman hasn't yet gone on the record to talk about that point of view. So I think we're at this moment where you've got centralizers leveraging blockchain, and you've got decentralizers leveraging blockchain. Thomas Tungers, which was too late for this week's newsletter, I'll put it in next week's, has just written a long essay about why the decentralizers will win. And the Web 2 people will not. And so it's kind of a finger on the pulse moment of history.
If you believe in it. I mean, if you believe that it's not just clever marketing spin.
Well, it will be a marketing spin for some people, for sure, even some well-known people.
I mean, we just need to see some evidence of a DAO. What I want to see, I'm not necessarily an unbeliever, but I need to see what a company that actually is a DAO, or as you say, an uncompany, whatever it is. I need to see an example of how a DAO can actually work and be successful.
Yeah.
And I always ask you this, you don't really have any examples.
There was a new one launched yesterday.
You see, but then you always say that, and then it's some obscure thing that, but I don't want to see a one launched. I want to see one that actually exists and works, and everyone's happy in it and is generating value and a product and all the rest of it.
Yeah. Do you remember we've talked in the past about DeFi and what percentage of your savings you can get, what percentage you can get on your savings? I don't know if I can find it, but yesterday Michael Arrington from the blockchain conference posted this piece about presumably a company he's just invested in. Where is it? Oh, I know where I can find it. I can find it here. Gosh, where is it? I thought it was here. Well, never mind. I'll find it and we'll talk about it next week. But basically, when we talked about it, Loic Lemure pinged me and said, "Keith, you're really naive. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm getting 100% profit a year on my savings. Your 20% number is what idiots get. If you really know what you're doing, you can get closer to 100%. And the thing that Mike linked to yesterday is a really clever cross-chain savings side that the average interest you get on your savings is 40 to 50%, because they've automated all the things Lemure was talking about. that he does manually. They had $12 million of money on the platform within the first few hours, and I'm going to guess it's going to grow very fast from there. So there are these, no middleman kind of yield platforms. It's called yield farming, that are attracting lots and lots of money and people.
I'm still deeply skeptical, but we'll see. What about subs coming back down to earth? Substack developments. That's interesting.
Yeah, Substack. Well, Substack's kind of on fire from a product point of view recently, in that it's doing new releases pretty much every week.
Yeah.
A while ago, it announced that it was going to let you put video into your Substack. This
Yeah,
week,
I've done that. That's quite good, what they've done.
yeah. So this week they've announced a massive upgrade to their podcasting experience, which involves publish once, send everywhere. So if your podcast wants to be in Apple and Spotify and all those other places, you can put it into Substack and they'll distribute it to all the other places, which Anchor has been doing for quite a long time. Spotify bought Anchor, if you remember. But Substack is a non-advertising based creator economy set of tools. That's a very important tool that they just added to their tool set. They also announced that they've upgraded their text editor. And last week...
what have they done to that?
It's just easier to do various things, like stylistically, than it was before. I don't think there's a huge difference to the old one.
I mean, it's still not that good. I mean, you can't even do color.
Interesting. You can't do color. Let's have a look.
I don't think maybe I don't know how to use it properly. I don't think you can do color.
Let's go and have a look at I have a Substack, but that was the week, which this is what it looks like. And if I go to my dashboard, I now can do a new episode or a new video or a new discussion thread or a new post. If you do a new post, you're into this is the new editor here.
Yeah, but you can't use color.
Let me just see if you can now. Let's just do TTTT. And if I click on B, that's bold. Does it give me anything? No, not really. You can't. You're right. You can't do color. Yeah, you cannot do color. You can do heading,
which is really bizarre for an editing tool.
Yeah,
publishing tool.
Yeah,
don't you think?
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. But anyway, not all is perfect in the world of Substack, but it is progressing, and I do think they're attracting more and more creators to use their platform.
Yeah, it's a nice product. I use it. I like it, and I like the people there. The question is, like with the podcast, I got, as you know, popular podcast, keen on whether how I could use that. But that's another question. What about the essay of the week, Keith? Another interesting essay.
Yeah, this one is really interesting because it isn't what I expected to see. It's about remote work being here to stay, and it's a very detailed study by Lightspeed, a venture fund. And the green is the post-COVID answer to the questions. So, do you want to be fully in the office? In 2021, 6% said yes. And you'd think it would have gone up because COVID's coming, getting to the point where people are starting to live normally, but it's gone down. It's now only 5%. Flexible working was 66%. It's now gone down to 54%. Remote first has gone up from last year to 31%, and fully remote has gone up from 8% to 10%. So far from the light at the end of the tunnel of COVID leading to a return to the office, it seems to be people are getting entrenched in their view that they do not want to go back to the office.
Well, my understanding is it depends who it is. White men apparently want to go back to the office and nobody else for some reason. Maybe because they're the managers.
Interesting. I didn't know that was true. And I also linked to the full report, which
yeah.
is on Google Drive, but it's very detailed and it's worth looking at. It's pertinent for me because I have an investment in a company called Cadence with a K.co, and they provide software to allow teams to get things done without assuming that there's an office in the middle. An office just becomes a resource, one of many. A hotel lobby could be a resource as well. And it's all about teams getting things done. And I personally think that people are mostly not going to want to go back to the office if they can avoid it. And I think companies will struggle with that because human beings just don't trust each other. Bosses tend to assume that workers are slackers and need to be in the office to be, watched over. And I think that fairly negative view of your colleagues is dominant.
So, anyway, with DAOs, none of it's going to make any difference anyway, right? We're all going to be in the DAO of the future, Keith. How long before everyone's in a DAO?
Exactly.
A year? 18 months?
100 years, I'd say, but it's a process.
Yeah. And what about startup of the week? Or maybe it's a start down of the week this week.
Exactly. A sad story. Stripe invested in a company called Fast, and Fast announced that it was going to make it possible to check out from your shopping cart faster and better, and promised all kind of benefits to anyone that implemented them. And it turns out that they raised a very large sum of money and only made $600,000 in revenue. So they ran out of money this week and closed down. Dom Holland, the CEO and co-founder, sometimes trailblazers don't make it all the way to the mountaintop. So I thought just for once we would recognize the effort and acknowledge the failure.
Yeah, and Stripe, that's surprising because you think everything Stripe does is good.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice that there's failure. Brings us down to earth. And then finally, Keith, tweet of the week.
Our good friend, Benedict Evans, tweeted, this diagram sums up what I think it's like to try to make specific predictions about Web3 and the metaverse. And don't try to read it, but this is a diagram of the early internet and how it aligned to all of the other networks that existed in the early 1990s. And I can tell you, as a pioneer in the internet bubble here with Gopher and Web and so on, but coming from the private network, commercial service side, CompuServe, the internet made no sense at all to me at that time. In the same way that Web3 makes no sense at all to people today, because it's just it sits in amongst all this other stuff, and it's really hard to disambiguate what it is and what it isn't, and what it might become and what it might not become. So I think Benedict is rightly depicting the confusion then to the confusion now. But then he goes on with a very long thread, which is quite useful to read. I put it in more for the thread than anything else.
I certainly believe in Web3 more than the metaverse, don't you?
Yes. I think it depends how you define metaverse. If you define metaverse as virtual life, then it kind of includes Web3. But if you define metaverse as augmented or virtual reality, then it
does. Or Facebook.
Yeah. And I think that narrower definition is going to fail, but the broader definition is going to grow.
Good. Well, it's good to have you back, Keith. Dr. Keith. We will be here next week for more. That was the week, but that was the week for April the 8th, 2022. We'll see you on the 15th next week. Keep well, Keith. We'll be in touch.
Bye.